The past few weeks on the Producer Seat podcast, I've been talking about the obstacles that church media leaders face, not with technology, but with leadership things like working with your pastor, managing volunteers, burnout, etc. And I've put together some conversations that I think are going to be really helpful for you, and I think you'll relate to some or maybe all of them. So enjoy. I almost quit church media. I don't mean I was tired. I don't mean I needed a break. I mean, I was ready to throw in the towel and walk away from it all completely, to be honest. And the crazy part is it wasn't because Sundays were bad. I mean, most Sundays went pretty well. But one of the most defining seasons of my life in church media also became one of the most exhausting. If you don't know me, my name's Dan Wathen, and I've spent over 2 decades working in church media and professional production. Everything from local church teams to national broadcasts and even documentaries, which are my personal favorite. And in this episode, I want to give you 2 strategic moves that completely changed how I lead. It's not about theory, but hard-earned moves that helped me stop surviving Sundays and start building something real. If you're a church media director who feels exhausted or unseen, or maybe even stretched thin, this is totally for you. Okay, back to the story. After the service ended, after everyone had left the building, the pastor would gather the entire staff, even families, back into the sanctuary, and he'd do a full debrief. What went great, what was wrong, what could have been better. I'll just say this was not the highlight of my week or anyone's, right? A lot of Sundays I'd walk into there thinking we knocked it out of the park this morning, right? My camera ops had amazing shots. The control room team killed it, and the message was great. People got saved, and lives were literally changed. Service flow was even good. And then all of a sudden, the media team would get called out for something. Sometimes it was legit, we messed up, and sometimes it wasn't. But either way, whatever sense of accomplishment I had walking into that room vanished. I walked out feeling, honestly, defeated, depressed. Sundays were horrible, and I started not looking forward to them. And here's what started happening. I didn't recognize it at the time. I slipped into perfection mode or performance mode, you could say. Things were only good if someone else said they were good. Even if I knew deep down it was a great day, it wasn't until someone else said it was. And what made it harder was that I just wasn't processing this for myself, right? I was the temperature setter for the rest of my media team and volunteers. Most of them weren't in the room. Right? So now I'm carrying feedback, frustration, emotion, discouragement, and I've got a decision to make. Do I let this roll downhill or do I filter it? Because how I show up on Monday or the following Sunday changes how they show up, to be honest. And if I'm being real, I don't always handle that well. I mean, there were times I probably vented too much. I could have taken that frustration and passed it down to my volunteers or team members when it wasn't appropriate, or I'd spend too long breaking down the frustration with my paid staff. And then there were the other times I went the other direction. I protected, but honestly, I should have protected more. I mean, I was in my 30s, still learning, and you never stop learning. It's always easier looking back and choosing the good from the bad and seeing what you could have done differently, right? But here's the thing. This isn't just in the church world. I live in Hollywood, and I'm a producer in Hollywood as well. And there's good days, there's good shoots, and some that you want to forget. I mean, the same translates to churches, right? It's life. We have to deal with that. But the key is keeping the wins higher than the losses. I call it the producer shift. Back then, I didn't have language for what was wrong. I mean, I felt it. Something wasn't right. Because the unspoken system was this. If Sunday goes well, I'm validated. My team's validated. We're professionals, and we can keep our job for another week. If Sunday goes bad, we carry it. There's no systems, no buffer. Life was based on emotion. Here's the producer shift I didn't understand yet. If Sunday only works because you're absorbing all the pressure every week, that's not success. That's actually a fragile system. A producer doesn't judge success during one moment, how they feel. They look at the big picture over time, whether what they're building can actually hold up week after week without breaking people, including themselves. And the way I was operating was not sustainable. So what does it look like to filter? Here's what I've learned, and usually it's been the hard way. Take a breath, take a beat, get in your car, ride around the block, go for a walk, or honestly, the big one, sleep on it. Most of the mistakes I've made have been talking too soon, out of emotion usually. Things are almost always better the next day and not as big as they felt in the moment, right? So be slow to speak. That's a good leadership lesson right there. Take the time to filter what really needs to be passed down. What's just emotion and hype? What's actually a systems issue? And what's something you need to carry and process before you hand it to anyone else? Now, let me tell you a second story. This one hit me a little harder. It was a little earlier in my career. My very first media director job at a church, I was hired to do one thing: take their television program national. It was local at the time. Clear goal, right? Huge responsibility. But I had this mindset I didn't even know I had. If I was truly the one they hired, I had to do everything myself. Asking for help felt like weakness. Pulling in outside voices felt like failure. So I carried it all myself quietly along. One day I get called into the pastor's office, and of all days, it was actually my birthday, but I don't think he knew that. But he said, Dan, I hired you to do one thing: take my show national. And it hasn't happened yet. I was scared. I was crushed. I wanted out of that room. And to be honest, I was second guessing this career because the job I had before that, I was kind of the bigwig. I was directing a live national TV show for a ministry. And then I'm in this situation and I'm getting told this. So yeah, there was pride, humiliation, that feeling like I've blown it. I just want out of the situation. The story I was telling myself in that office was simple: I'm a failure. He hired me, not someone else. So I have to do everything myself. That's a huge burden, especially in the church world. You know, the pastor's not only your boss, but he's your pastor. It's a strange dynamic. We'll get into that some other time, but it's weird, right? The turnaround happened when I called a pastor friend of my family and I unloaded on him, told him everything. Instead of him trying to fix it, he did something. He mailed me John Maxwell books, the leadership guy, and he signed me up for all of Maxwell's CD of the Month clubs. Yep, those literal CDs. And over time, something clicked. I learned it wasn't all on me. Producers don't prove value by suffering by themselves. They build teams, they create systems, they pull in help early. And once I stopped carrying everything alone, we got that show on national television. And I actually started loving that job again. And in my early 20s, I learned one of the biggest lessons I still live by today: build a team. So here's the takeaway for the first move. If your definition of a good Sunday requires you to be emotionally wrecked by Monday, that's not sustainable. That's a warning light. Thinking like a producer doesn't mean you care less. It means you build something that lasts longer than your adrenaline. Think about that. It means you stop measuring success by one service and you start measuring it by whether the system and honestly your team is getting better and healthier, because wins matter, but sustainability matters too. And you want to keep the wins higher than the losses. This next move might be uncomfortable for some people to talk about, but it's the truth. Because in the church world, being helpful is often seen as a virtue. We're taught to serve, to say yes, to step in whenever there's a gap. And early in your media career, that can be a good thing, right? You want to get promoted, you want people to notice you. But there's a moment where being helpful turns into something else. It turns into carrying responsibility that was never given to you or clearly defined. So here's what that might look like, especially in church media. Maybe you say yes to last minute changes. You fix problems before anyone else even notices. You stay late so things don't fall apart. These are all good, okay? And from the outside, you look faithful. You're dependable. You're probably easy to work with. You're the perfect employee, technically. But inside, you're exhausted. And worse, you become bitter because no one else notices or acknowledges that you're going the extra mile, right? A former pastor of mine used to say this all the time: keep the main thing the main thing. That sounds simple, but it's crazy easy to lose sight of. Think back to why you were hired in the first place. Your pastor probably laid out a few very specific problems they wanted you to solve, right? Clear issues, clear needs, expectations. But over time, it's easy to start drifting. You start doing things that aren't necessarily bad, they're even good things, but they slowly pull you away from the main thing. And when that happens, you're busy, but not always effective. You're working hard, but not always on what matters most. I had the privilege of working with media guru Phil Cook years ago. And when he hired me full time, he laid out a few very clear main things he wanted me to fix for the company. It wasn't complicated, it was literally spelled out in one email. And if you know Phil, he's very to the point and short. And I remember regularly going back to that email, checking myself to make sure I was still staying on course. Because the moment you stop anchoring yourself to the main thing, you don't usually drift into bad work, you drift into good work that pulls you off the mission. I eventually realized if I keep saying yes to everything, I'm not actually helping the church. I'm hiding problems that leadership probably needs to see and be aware of. And I'm signaling to my team and volunteers that I'll always be around to save the day. That's not leadership. That's leadership that's headed for burnout and disaster. I call it the producer reframe, right? Producers don't just help, they take responsibility. They ask better questions, they define lanes, they clarify ownership, they surface issues early before they actually become emergencies. And here's the key difference: helpful people absorb pressure, responsible leaders redistribute it. Think about that. Helpful people absorb pressure, responsible leaders redistribute it. As I matured, I learned how to be honest, respectful, and not emotional, not reactive, at least not all the time. I still mess up. But being helpful will make you liked, being responsible will make you trusted. And in the long run, trust is what gives you a seat at the table. Not ego, not gear, not hustle, leadership. The year was 1999. I remember it very well. I just landed my first media director job at a church in Beaumont, Texas. That's in the east side of Texas. I was super pumped. It was a good salary for my age. I knew all about cameras. I could edit. I could direct the live service in my sleep. But I got hired because of my skills. But what I didn't realize I didn't have was leadership experience. I didn't know what to do when a volunteer got upset and walked off the job. That actually happened. I didn't know how to handle disagreement. I didn't know how to lead people who didn't share my same vision. My skills got me in the door, but leadership was going to determine whether I built something that lasted. And that lesson was tough, but it changed everything. So today I want to share 8 principles that changed how I lead church media and how you can build something that actually thrives. Skills get you hired, but leadership builds the team. I was trained by a great guy. He was a mentor. I was a teenager at a church in Tulsa, Oklahoma, Victory Christian Center. And his name was Tom. And back then, the church purchased TV cameras, went on television, and I would sit in the service just staring at these cameras. I was fascinated. I wanted on it. So my parents talked to Tom, and he agreed to train me. So he taught me running camera, how to run cameras, how to direct, how to edit, and even getting behind the equipment racks and learning how to wire, lots of BNC cables. But knowing production and leading people are 2 completely different things. Trust me, production's predictable, people aren't. Gear responds. If I hit the zoom on a camera, I know it's going to zoom in, at least it should. Software responds the same way. The input, we know what our output's going to be. But people are different. They've got emotion, ego, they have history. In church media, your real job isn't pushing those buttons, it's pastoring people. Number 2, honor the past to build the future. If you're new in the media director seat, listen up. You're going to want to change everything probably in the first few weeks that you get there, right? You may not like the way the control room's set up. You may not like the way the volunteers are directing the services, calling shots, running Pro Presenter. You might not like their system. But keep in mind, your volunteers built what's there. They sacrificed the weekends, the years. They put that time in before you got there. So they care super deeply about what they've done. So if you come in and change everything overnight, it feels like you're dismissing their history and everything they've built. So I advise you, slow down. It's okay. Listen first, get them together, ask how things started. Ask them why the control room's set up this way. Why did you put the switcher here and not over here? But find out from them. Ask what's worked. Celebrate what's been built. Then cast vision, right? And get them on your team first. But here's the hard truth. Not everyone will go where you're leading, and that's okay. because thriving departments are built on alignment, not 100% agreement. Number 3, lead with integrity, not perfection. I had a volunteer leave one time because he didn't like my leadership style. He didn't like my directing. He didn't like anything that I did. And I was fairly new in this position. And then he actually walked off the job. He was so mad. I mean, I was hurt. I was defensive. Today I'd probably handle it completely different. I would listen longer before it got to that point. I'd separate his feedback from my identity, and I'd respond slower. If you do this long enough, people will leave. Somebody's going to get mad and leave. It's just part of the job, right? The question isn't, did everyone stay? The question is, did you lead with integrity? Did you treat them with respect even when you disagreed? You don't have to be perfect, but you do have to be mature. Number 4, you're not the system. This one will save you, especially new media leaders, because you typically think, I'll just handle it myself when there's a problem. I'll stay late. I'll fix it. And that works short term. But if everything depends on you, your department and your ministry are super fragile because you're not building a department. At that point, you're building a stressful job. And really practical, you need things like a volunteer recruiting plan on paper, not just in your head. You need clear roles. You need a training plan for those volunteers and written systems. I mean, how many times do we show up and we got new volunteers and we say, just get on the camera, we'll train you as we go, right? Yeah, that'll get you through that week, but long term, it's not sustainable. You gotta have systems. And when it's too much, when things are too much on you, you gotta communicate that to your pastor or boss. Because burnout isn't a badge of honor, it's a warning light. Number 5, speak the language of mission. Stop talking about cameras and start talking about mission. Your pastor doesn't wake up thinking about frame rates. No, they're thinking about the budget. They're thinking about people, impact the church is making in the community. And let's say you really do need to replace those 20-year-old cameras in the sanctuary. And you go up to your pastor and you say, Pastor, we need this new 4K camera system. It's going to cost $500,000. And he looks at you with that blank stare and walks off. And you wonder why he never listens to you. Try this instead. Pastor, if we want our online audience to feel more connected during worship, here's what we need to improve. Same request, different language. So when you speak strategy, your pastor is going to listen to you differently. That's when you move from being a technician to being a partner. You're in this thing with him. Number 6, systems over hype. Hype will get you through Easter and Christmas, but building systems and a solid plan will get you through 52 weeks. Most exhaustion isn't a gear problem. It's not cameras. It's unclear timelines. There's no early deadlines. You got last minute edits all the time. There's no recurring rhythm for your volunteer recruitment because you haven't built margin. So for instance, if a video is going to air this Sunday and you're editing it, you need to have it finished by Wednesday, not Saturday night. You need to expect changes. Give your pastor that opportunity to watch your video, preferably a few days before it airs, and let him make changes. It's okay. It's not the end of the world. That way you've got time to go back in, you're not stressed, and your video's great, and everybody's happy. So margin lowers stress more than any new equipment ever will. Number 7, create leaders, not just operators. An operator waits to be told what to do, but a leader understands the why and can train someone else. Stop just adding volunteers and start developing leaders. One thing that radically helped my life as a church media director is my volunteer team. I began to find the leaders in that group. You can pick them out, the ones that are always on time, they're very faithful. And I would pull them aside privately and I'd say, so-and-so, thank you so much for all the time you've been giving this department. And I really see a lot of potential in you. And I'd just like your advice and I'd like to have you around a bit longer. Would you consider being a leader in our team? This could be someone that maybe leads a Sunday. Maybe they're the ones responsible to make sure all the camera ops and different positions are filled. Maybe they do the scheduling once or twice a week for that group. And if someone's running late, this is the person they call. It's not all on you, right? Developing leaders, we're developing buy-in into our team, and meet with this group monthly. And then quarterly, at least get your leaders and your entire team together. It just builds great synergy. If you're new in the seat, that's cool. It's okay. You're learning. But if you've been doing this a while and you're exhausted, just know it's probably not a gear problem. It's leadership and systems. Healthy teams are led by mature leaders who develop other leaders. So ask yourself, do I have systems? Am I building leaders? Am I aligned with my pastor? Or am I just surviving Sundays? Let me ask you something. What if the fastest way to stall your career in church media has nothing to do with your talent? Nothing to do with how well you run cameras, direct a service, edit a video, or even run cable. The thing that's quietly killing your influence, your opportunities, and your ability to lead is your reputation. Scary part, most people don't even realize it's happening until it's too late. Welcome to the Producer Seat. I'm Dan Wathen, and this is the podcast where we help church media professionals start thinking like a producer. There's a principle in leadership development that's been around for decades. It says only about 15% of your professional success comes from your actual technical skill. The other 85% comes from your ability to work with people, communicating clearly, building trust, following through. Now, I know some of you might be thinking, hey, Dan, I got into church media because I love the tech, the gear, putting videos together. I'm not a people person. I get that. Honestly, I'm more of a behind the scenes kind of person myself. I'm more comfortable that way. But here's what I've noticed. I literally can't tell you how many times I've reached out to a church media leader and never heard anything back. I'm not talking about sales emails or spam, all that. I ignore those too, trust me. I'm talking about real, genuine connection, real people, someone you know. This might be a ministry connection, someone with a genuine question for you, someone interested in volunteering on your team, and nothing. Not responding is one of the fastest ways to damage your reputation because people don't automatically think, hey, this guy must be busy. They think he never responds. And once that label sticks, it's so hard to shake it. Your external reputation matters more than you think. It affects whether the people around you, staff, volunteers, collaborators feel supported and valued, or whether they feel like they're constantly chasing you down. It affects whether other churches want to work with you. It directly affects your ability to grow a team. Let me bring in a concept from the business world for a minute. In business, there's something called a lead. You probably heard it. A lead is simply somebody who's interested in what you offer. That's it. They haven't even said yes yet. They're just interested. Businesses pay big money for leads because leads are potential. Leads are growth. Without leads coming in, things stall. No money coming in. So now here's the connection to you. In church media, your leads are volunteers, but it doesn't stop there. A lead could be a coworker reaching out for help, pastor asking a question, someone outside your church wanting to genuinely connect. That person who emailed about running late, running camera, lead. The college student who wants to learn more about editing, lead. The person who checked the box on the volunteer form, lead. Anyone raising their hand and reaching out to you is an opportunity to build trust. Those people are gold. Start treating them like that. In the business world, there's a rule. Never let a lead sit more than 24 hours without responding because interest fades super fast. People move on. Same applies to your team. When someone reaches out wanting to help, respond that day if you can, next day at the latest, because the people raising their hand right now, they may be the very people who determine how far your ministry can actually go. Now let's talk about something even more important. This is your internal reputation. This is how people inside the church or your organization experience working with you. And here's something most people don't think about. Reputation inside forms quietly. Nobody's typically going to schedule a meeting with you right off the bat and say, hey, your communication's slipping. Instead, they start changing how they work around you, right? They start thinking, this guy never responds. Don't count on that getting done quickly. Let's just handle it ourselves and fill them in after. The moment people start working around you instead of through you, your leadership influence is already shrinking. And the hard part, nobody tells you it's even happening. You just wake up one day and realize you're not being included in things anymore like you used to. Whenever I see media leaders dropping the ball on communication, it's usually not a problem with his character or her character. It's usually a structure problem. And what do I mean by structure? It's the simple things like, do you have a scheduling routine? When someone calls and leaves a message, do you have the habit of calling them back that day, or does it just sit there? So when your pastor hands you a new project, do you have a step-by-step process you follow? Or do you just hope you remember everything? That's structure. And most church media people were never taught how to build it. They had no way to model it, right? They're just buried in the work, editing videos, troubleshooting cables, fixing the live stream, rebuilding slides 10 minutes before service. Hey, I've been there, I get you. When you're living in the technical trenches, communication is usually the first thing that falls off. But the longer you're buried in the work, the more the relational side of leadership slips away. I'll tell you a quick story. Years ago, I worked with someone who was, honestly, probably one of the hardest workers in church media I've ever seen. Great person, super committed. I mean, if something broke, this person was the one getting the call. They always showed up. Technically, they were on par. They had it together. You could count on them to fix any problem. But here's what was happening at the same time. While they were working those long overnight hours fixing stuff, their inbox was filling up. Emails from staff weren't being answered. Simple requests were waiting days to even get a reply. And over time, that person got labeled. Not as the hard worker, but as the person who doesn't respond. All those late nights, all that dedication became invisible because what people experience every day is communication. In leadership, perception often becomes reality. Not because it's fair, but because that's simply how organizations work. And the thing that gets me about this story is their reputation was totally fixable. They just needed someone to tell them and a structure to help them. Hey, before we get into the solutions, I wanted to share something with you that I think you want to know about. Are you stuck doing the same things week after week and just not getting ahead? Maybe you're great at the technical side, but leading a team and working with your pastor, planning ahead, that kind of stuff feels out of reach. I've built something for you. It's called the Producer Seat. It's a private working relationship, just you and me, for church media leaders stepping into producer level responsibility. Leading your team well, working with your pastor without the guesswork, planning ahead instead of just reacting every week. If you're ready to make that move, reach out to me today and let's talk. Now back to the episode. Okay, so how do we actually fix this? I want you to pull out your calendar and your daily schedule right now. What? You don't have one? You don't have a daily schedule? Okay, that's okay. Today we're actually going to start building one. And here's how I personally do it. I use two methods that work together. First, I use my Apple Calendar for anything time specific. Could be like a meeting, a call, a deadline that comes through via email. It goes into my calendar immediately because I don't trust my memory for that stuff, right? But the second method is probably one that's made the biggest difference. For probably I would say the last 2 years, I've been using an analog planner. That's right, a physical paper planner. And it says 2026. Old school, I know, right? But here's why it matters. There is something about holding time in your hands. All this is time. I can physically feel and see how many days have gone by. I can flip through and see how many pages are left in the year. If I look here, we have a whole lot of the year left. Here's what we've used so far. You can't do that digitally. You just can't. And I'll tell you, there are moments when I'll flip through and go, wow, 3 months have gone by and I barely moved a certain project forward. And that's a super big gut check. It's kicked my tail into gear more than once. In my planner, I write down all my appointments and I break it down. There's a task, there's every task for that day. I list it out, everything. It could be picking up clothes at the cleaners, grocery runs, emails I need to return, specific emails, calls to make, scripts to write, project milestones, every bit of it. At the top of each day, I'll write my top 3 priorities. These are the 3 things that have got to get done today. Even if everything else slides to tomorrow, these 3 won't. One of those 3 is usually always communication. So that's returning emails, following up with a volunteer, checking in with a staff member. So here's a hack that I think you'll like. Every morning while I'm having coffee before the day gets too crazy, I finalize that list and then I open up ChatGPT on my phone and I've built a custom AI agent in there and I've even named it Ellen. I named it after her. This was an amazing assistant I had years ago. She was great. Ellen knows how I work. She knows I like creative tasks in the morning and more routine stuff in the afternoon. So creative in the morning means things like working through a video concept my pastor gave me, planning a big volunteer event, developing a new show idea. That stuff needs fresh brain space. So routine in the afternoon means editing a podcast, answering emails, prepping the control room for a midweek service, pulling cable, It's important work, but it doesn't need your full best creative energy. So I give Ellen my task list, and then she builds me an hour by hour schedule for the day with check boxes next to each task. And I'll be honest, crossing things off on that list really feels good. It feels like you're actually moving because you are. I actually print it out and then I paperclip it inside my physical planner, or I'll just transfer the times that Ellen gives me next to the items on my to-do list. Or if you want to get real fancy, ask ChatGPT to generate a downloadable calendar file. You can drop it into whatever app you use. And if you're in the Google world, Gemini actually talks directly to Google Workspace, so it's super easy. One more thing on this. If you're not paying for a pro plan on ChatGPT, Gemini, or Claude, do it. I mean, I tell people all the time, it's the best $20 a month I spend. I would get rid of Netflix over this account if I had to. If you want something different, you got to start doing something different. And this is one of those things. When you get intentional about your day, people notice. When nothing's falling through the cracks, people notice. That's when your reputation as a leader really starts to shift. I'll be honest with you for a minute. I am a behind the scenes kind of person. That's my safe spot. I coach the talent. I'm not the talent. I mean, even doing this podcast has pushed me out of my comfort zone in a big way. I finally decided to face the big fear, something I didn't feel like I was great at doing, being on camera. Hopefully I'm getting better and it comes across. But here's something I didn't expect at all. Doing this has given me a whole new appreciation for what I'm asking pastors and on-air talent to do every single week. I mean, being in front of the camera is scary. It's a real thing. I get it now in a way I didn't before, and that's been super valuable. So when I tell you to push past the introvert thing, I'm not talking down to you. I'm talking from experience. I get you. In my career, I had the chance to travel and work with media consultant Phil Cook. If you're in the church media world, you probably know the name. If you don't, look him up. When I first started traveling with Phil, sitting in meetings with pastors, being part of high-level conversations, I was blown away. It seemed so easy for him. He'd walk into a room, into any room, and own the conversation. He was comfortable, relaxed. He could talk to anybody, connect with anyone, and lead any discussion, even uncomfortable ones. And I'm sitting there thinking, this is the complete opposite of me. But here's what happened over the years of watching him. Hundreds of meetings, watching it modeled over and over and over. It started to transfer. Somewhere along the way, I realized, hey, I can do this. Now, today, I'm comfortable going into those rooms, leading conversations, and making the first move. I still consider myself an introvert, but I've learned to adapt, right? And that's changed everything professionally. You can be an introvert and still be a connector. It's a skill, and skills can be learned. So for those of you dreading that first move, like approaching someone about volunteering, returning that call, sending that email you've been sitting on for a week, do it. The moment you do, you're going to feel great. You're going to feel on top of the world. And the other person, they don't think you're weird. They're expecting it. They were probably hoping for it. If you do this enough times, it just becomes part of who you are. All right, so let's land the plane. Your reputation as a media director isn't built on the gear you own. It's not built on the hours you log. It's built on responsiveness, on reliability, on whether people feel like they can count on you. And the good news, sometimes simply protecting your reputation is as simple as putting a little margin in your day and staying responsive to the people around you. Okay, I want to ask you something. You took this job because you wanted to use your skills for something that actually mattered, right? You were excited, you had vision, those late nights didn't bug you as much, you were all in. But now you're the last one to leave the building again. You're buried under a huge pile of urgent, never-ending requests. I mean, Centerline Camera still has that random glitch issue and nobody's got a budget to fix it. Pastor still wants a new video, staff are waiting on things you haven't had time to start. And last Saturday night, you were texting a volunteer to remind them what time to show up Sunday morning because the schedule went out late again. Somewhere in the back of your mind, a thought keeps coming up and you're almost afraid to say it out loud. I don't love this job anymore. And it's not just you. I mean, you look around at your team and you see all those same blank stares. You're all in the same sinking boat. Today, we're talking about the red flags, the signs that your media team may be on life support and what you can do about it before it's too late. Welcome to the Producer Seat Podcast. I'm Dan Wathen. This show exists only for one reason: to help you, the church media leader, think like a producer, lead with purpose, and build teams that actually last. So let's get into it. Here's how it usually goes. You start with a small team at your church. You got a huge vision. Most of the time, it's maybe just you and maybe one or two other people doing the work of the full department. You say yes to everything because you want to serve. You want to prove yourself because when you say no, you feel like you're failing, right? You don't want to let anybody down. So you become the video guy, the graphic designer, the social media manager, the one who runs tech on Sunday and then edits the recap video Monday morning. You wear a ton of hats. For a while, you love it. But without clear systems, without a process for how requests come in, without a seat at the planning table, you stop being a creative and you start becoming a firefighter, constantly putting out the latest blaze. The turning point usually isn't some huge dramatic event. It's that slow, quiet fade. You know, it's your heart sinking when your phone buzzes with another email after 9 from your pastor. It's the tension in team meetings. It's that unspoken feeling that everybody's just trying to stay afloat. It's realizing you work at a church every Sunday, every weekend, but you haven't actually been to church in months. You're running the board, managing the crew, watching the live stream, but you're never in the room to receive. You're never worshiping. You're never being filled back up. And you can't give out forever if you're not getting refilled. That's how passionate, talented people end up on life support. It's not with a bang, it's with a slow fade. So let's talk about the symptoms, the red flags that are probably happening right now today in your department. And just like any diagnosis, naming them is the first step to fixing them. Red flag number 1, the last minute tsunami. You find out about a huge event the same week it's happening. Nobody bothered to let you know. They need full media coverage, graphics package, announcement video, social post by Sunday. So your team drops everything and goes into survival mode. Not producing quality stuff, they're just trying to get something out the door. And this isn't a one-time thing. This is happening every single week almost. Maybe you're not in creative team meetings. You're not on the church calendar, and nobody's thinking about media until the moment they need it. So the result, you're going to have rushed projects, a burnout team, and work that never has a chance to be as good as it could be. Red flag number 2, the rise of sideways complaining. Okay, this is a big one. Team members stop bringing problems to you. Instead, they start complaining to each other. You know, you might hear whispers. You notice these side conversations happening, volunteers venting to each other, frustration spreading from one person to the next. And it's not just inside your department and the media team. It starts to spill over to other departments, to staff members, people in the congregation even. So this happens when trust is broken, when people feel that speaking up to you is pointless, or worse, it might be risky. And honestly, this is a huge cancer for your team and the morale of your team, because healthy teams, you're going to have conflict, but disagree in the room, work it out there, then move forward. Unhealthy teams, you know what they do? They smile in meetings and then they go vent in the parking lot. So when sideways complaining replaces direct communication, your department already has a reputation problem, and you may be the last one to know it. Red flag number 3, the leader becomes the no man. People have stopped bringing you new ideas, not because they don't have them, because they already know the answer they're going to get from you. Maybe you were once the person who championed new ideas. You brought them yourself. You're the one the other departments wanted in their meetings. Now they assume the answer is no before they even ask you, so they just quit. This isn't because you stopped caring. It's because you feel so overwhelmed that any new ask feels like one more wave in a flood you're already drowning in. But here's the dangerous part. When other departments stop including the media team in planning, you're guaranteeing you will be the last one to know about stuff, which feeds that last minute tsunami we talked about, which burns the team out more, which makes you say no more. It's a death spiral, and it starts the moment the leader becomes the person everyone works around. Red flag number 4, the quality slips and everyone notices. I mean, your work's okay. It's not necessarily bad enough to get called out every week, but it's not what it used to be. Maybe the graphics feel rushed. The last video you edited had moments you never let slip through before. Social media reels look uninspiring, and you know it, but you sent it anyway because the deadline hit and there was no more time. So this isn't necessarily a talent problem. Your team hasn't lost its skill. It's a systems problem. Your team stopped creating and became professional firefighters. But here's the thing about perception. Leadership doesn't see the broken system, they see the output. Staff start to whisper and talk. The pastor asks for an update, maybe in a tone that's more concerning than curious. And once that perception takes root, it's super hard to reverse. Red flag number 5, the calling has become a time clock. This is the one that costs the most and the one that gets talked about probably the least. You didn't take this job to punch a clock every morning. You took it because you believed the work was ministry. But somewhere along the way, that mission that once gave you the reason to get up every morning started to feel empty. You're not creating anymore. You're just executing, getting through to Sunday, keeping the pastor happy, surviving the week. Scary part is you look around at your team and you see the same things in their eyes. The passion's gone. The calling's become a time clock. Working for a church is unique. It's very different in a way that most jobs aren't, because your pastor, he's your boss, and yet he's still your pastor. And those lines get blurry fast. And when you're running the board every Sunday, but never sitting to receive, you're never worshiping, and you're never being preached to, you're spiritually starving while trying to feed everybody else. You can't keep that up because it's going to show in your work and your team and in your home. Take a second and think about those 5 flags we talked about. Which one hit closest to home to you? Drop it in the comments. Sometimes just naming it is a powerful step. And I promise you, you're not the only one. And if this is the kind of conversations you want more of, hit subscribe. Hey, real quick pause here. I wanted to make you aware of a program I have for church media leaders who are stepping into or maybe struggling with producer level responsibilities. The program's called The Producer Seat, and it's not a course, it's not a video library, it's direct coaching, me and you together, real situations, real answers. Find out more at drwmediaworks.com. Now back at it. The diagnosis is real, but here's the most important thing I want you to know. A dysfunctional team doesn't have to stay that way. You're not powerless in this. You can't fix the entire organization overnight, but you can take small strategic steps that start to move things in the right direction. Let me give you 3. Step 1, get yourself in the room. Stop being a reactive service provider and start being a strategic partner. Fight to be in those planning meetings and creative team meetings. Get on the church calendar. Build a direct line to whoever sets that schedule. Even go to leadership and you can frame it as a benefit to them. Say, hey, if the media team is part of the conversation early, we can build something that's actually amazing instead of scrambling to catch up at the last minute. That's not a complaint. That's a producer talking. Step 2, build one system, not 10, one. Just pick the biggest pain point you have right now and build one system around it. Maybe it's last minute requests that are coming in from staff members. So create a content form. Google form, it's free, takes less than an hour to set up. Maybe your volunteers aren't showing up. Get a scheduling tool. Post the schedule 7 days out or more. Every week, no exceptions. You don't need fancy software, you just need clarity and consistency. One system done well is worth more than 10 systems nobody uses. Step 3, protect your own soul. This one is a non-negotiable for you. Your creativity is not a machine. And yes, you can run it into the ground. It's more like a plant. You got to constantly water it. So I want you to find a way to spiritually receive. This might be going to a different church service, watching something online, maybe a different community. Might be a mentor outside your church, a counselor, a coach. Hey, the Producer Seat program does this very thing. Someone who speaks into your life who isn't your boss. Because if you stay spiritually empty, it's going to show up in your work, your team, your home every single time. Here's what I want you to do this week. Write down 3 things. Here we go. Number 1, which red flag is hurting the team the most right now? Just one, be honest. Second, one specific action you can take this week to start moving the needle on that flag. It's not a full fix, it's just one step. Number 3, one thing you're going to stop saying yes to starting today. I want you to write it down. Put it somewhere where you'll see it every single day this week. That fire you felt on day 1 of your job, it's not gone. It's just buried. It's buried under all those unclear processes and a system that was never built to support you. So let's start clearing the debris one step this week. You took this job to make a difference, and you still can. But you can't pour from an empty cup. You can't lead a team you've lost. And you can't produce excellent work inside a system that's set up against you. If you're ready to change that, if you want direct coaching from someone who understands what this role really costs, the producer seat is where that work happens. It's my private program for church media leaders. We work through real situations, real strategy, real accountability. Go to drwmediaworks.com to learn more. Link is also in the show notes. Thanks for watching this episode of the Producer Seat podcast. You're doing harder work than most people know, so keep going. If you know someone in this seat right now, send them this episode and subscribe to the channel while you're at it. And remember, start thinking like a producer.